Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Blue Thunder Pod, WWE Edition. I'm your host, Billy Sullivan. With me this week, my dad's favorite podcast host, and she likes Bronny Breaker even more than she likes Bronny James, Aaron Winkler.
Hi, everyone.
This week we're going to talk about a little bit about Money in the Bank, and then on to Raw on the WWE edition, which this is. The AEW edition of the Blue Thunder Pod will drop at the same time as this, as always. So if you haven't listened to that already, please go check it out. What'd you think of Raw this week? Just generally.
So I don't know if my mentality changed just within me internally, or if it was legitimate. But I thought the first half of Raw was boring and clunky, and the second half of Raw was fun to watch.
That's Raw. That's how Raw goes usually.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, you do. I think there's a biochemical change that happens, and when you start watching wrestling, you lay off like you did, and your body returns to equilibrium, and then when you start watching again, your brain chemistry adjusts, because that's the only thing that could explain the internet wrestling community and the way that we treat each other online, all loving the same thing. Nothing but a brain chemistry malfunction would explain that. So I think that's what's happening to you right now.
All right, cool.
You're in the pupa stage.
Yeah, because
of the
I was
wrestle brain.
I was like, boo, I'm not really enjoying this. But then halfway through, I realized I was. So I don't know what happened, but whatever. I liked it. I'll always like Raw, even the bad Raws. So. Yeah,
it's fun. I mean, wrestling's fun. It wasn't always, but
depends on who you ask.
For 25 years, it kind of sucked ass. But we all just watched it religiously anyway. Is this your first real? So the show opened with CM Punk, and,
yes.
and they did a recap of Money in the Bank, which we'll run that through real quick after I ask you this. But I was just curious, is this your first time with CM Punk, dealing with seeing him perform?
Well, interestingly that you asked this, because while I was watching it, I was thinking how funny, because the CM Punk that I always knew was ECWE, indie wrestlery, up and coming. Who's this guy, CM Punk?
That's his whole vibe, his whole career.
And now he's this ginormous
Mr. WWE.
face of an organization. So it is pretty interesting to have that last impression of him, and now this. It was definitely a shift.
That is. And now that you mention it, one of the primary reasons that it didn't really, it worked because it was awesome while it was happening, but it didn't work because it fell apart in AEW, was that he's too WWE now.
Yeah.
His ideas behind the way that you should do a wrestling show were basically the way the WWE does a wrestling show, and that conflicted with AEW. And AEW's thoughts of how you should do a wrestling show are what CM Punk basically represented for most of his career.
Yeah, and
the indie gritty.
Yeah, that's what I knew him as, and I always knew who he was because of him being from 20 minutes away from where I live now. So so I knew who he was always throughout all these years that I wasn't watching. But it was just so interesting to me to come from him being this newish guy, and who is he? And I didn't know much about him all those years ago to now he is just the big guy. It
struck me that and he since he came back to WWE in quotes, he came back at the Survivor Series just at the very end, came out. It's a big, huge pop, place went nuts. It was in Chicago. He was in the Royal Rumble, so not really a match, just the Rumble, and tore his triceps. He has not had a match in WWE.
Oh, really?
Since 2013.
Oh.
Because, he's a bunch of matches in AEW, and he was out for a giant chunk of his time with AEW. It was 2 years, and a year of it was injured.
Right.
With the other arm triceps injury. So I'm interested to see if he can physically. He was his matches in AEW were great. They were phenomenal. Even his last one against Samoa Joe was fantastic. It was at All In. It was almost a full year ago. It was his last regular wrestling match. But he's my age, almost exactly, and he wrestles not a flippy kind of style. Yeah. It's more of a gritty, but tough, like hard hitting style. So I'm interested in like, can he physically do it?
Right.
So,
Well, that another thing I thought when I saw him was because he 20 years ago was like this super young guy, and then I was like, oh, he's like Silver Fox now. He's got gray. He's got gray in the beard. I mean, he looks great. He still looks
like
the
pissed
same.
off at all the youngsters in AEW.
But it was weird to see him so different. Like, you know, the Jeff Jarrett's kind of looked old back then. So the Billy Gunns looked old back then. So that stuff, seeing them
Plus,
now
Punk
is not a big
like
deal.
loaded with drugs,
right?
I mean, not just the straight edge thing, but like he's not loaded with like human growth hormone, like all the other guys.
Yeah, but this was like my first foray into like current CM Punk and what he is now and how big he is kind of.
Have you seen him do like promos before? Because that's his thing, you know. Like
yes. I'd seen stuff way back when, and then I think you've shown me stuff over the years and things. I know you kind of like.
I mean,
you've always liked him, and then you were sad about what happened.
Fan. I was not happy with that. Like, and I get aggravated because he still takes shots at AEW that you wouldn't even notice if you weren't like super in the weeds. Like on this show, he made a comment about the crowd size or whatever.
Right. Well, and like it's no secret. It wasn't even a secret to me. Like. That things went very south with how he left.
Yeah.
I mean, anybody that even paid attention to anything in pop culture kind of heard what was going on and knew what was happening. So without even watching, I knew that he left on really bad terms because there was an actual physical dust up or two or several.
It was wrestling and historically.
Right.
Wrestlers they have big egos and they're always super psycho about like their spots. So there's always like conflict. And everybody except for Kenny Omega, he was the only one that handled it well. Everybody handled that thing like poorly,
right?
But I do think like how everything settled, where it ended up is where it should be. Like CM Punk really should be in WWE. It's where he's obviously fits better these days. Like 25-year-old Ring of Honor CM Punk would fit better in this AEW situation. But what he is right now,
he's gone mainstream.
He has. He really he has a kind of a famous. He referenced it at the start of the show. He has a very famous promo that he cut on John Cena right before my favorite WWE match of all time, which was the Money in the Bank 2011 Punk versus Cena, when Punk won in Chicago and took the belt with him. He was leaving, like in kayfabe, but also his contract was actually up. He did resign. They screwed that up because Vince is an asshole, and he brought him back a week later. You had him leave with the belt. You could have done so many amazing things, like had him show up at like indie shows, be gone for 2 months, whatever. Like do it great. Vince got nervous, like, no, bring him back this week. He's like back on fucking Raw. That sucked. But the match itself, my favorite of all time. He cut a promo before that match on John Cena, and Cena famously is from the Boston area, Mr. Massachusetts guy. Yeah. He told Cena, you always saw yourself as the underdog. You always considered yourself the Boston Red Sox. Well, you've become the New York Yankees. And it was a great promo. Yeah. It was awesome, cool, great line, cool thing to say. He references it here, and he kind of has himself now become the New York Yankees. Yeah. He's Mr. Mainstream. He's I
mean, clearly, I was watching it, and if I had never seen him way back in the day, I would have just been like, oh, he's the Rock or the Stone Cold of this now. That's what he is. He's the big guy that everyone's excited to see. The
only negative for me now with him in WWE, because I do think it is where he belongs and where he's happiest, where he fits in the best, is that he's too good a promo. Because there's 4 people that can even deal with kind of that level of promo in WWE, and he's so far and away. And AEW, like we talked about, pretty much everybody, you have to be pretty good because it's not scripted. You have to be good on your feet to talk. And the way they do things in WWE, most people kind of sound, even the better mid level promos, it sounds like somebody's reading this.
Yeah, and then the ones that are really good at it end up leaving to go to Hollywood and make movies.
And Punk just doesn't do the script thing. He doesn't do anything. He just talks.
Yeah,
because he's a goddamn cult leader that I would join his cult. He's he's unbelievable. Maybe the best talker of all time. And I thought it showed in the promo he did here. for you as a returner to wrestling, did you see that as stark a difference as I comprehend when I watch like him versus everybody else basically on the
probably because Seth Rollins' portion was so fucking boring to me.
And I thought Seth, for the first time, like in this Punk thing, came off actually looking okay here. Like what he said was like actually correct. He was like, the biggest problem is that Punk sees himself as like the center of the universe.
But
or whatever.
I think because,
but like delivery wise,
I think because it was like so different.
Yeah,
that it was so noticeable that he like I was just like, oh, snooze.
Not
like
nearly as good.
It was not engaging to listen to him. It was like somebody. Like you said, Punk is like natural about it. And Seth Rollins was like somebody doing a character, and it made me like snooze. Like I just wasn't. My notes said boring spelled out letter by letter because it was
Seth
boring.
Being added into this because it's something interesting to do with Seth, and he's kind of boring. Except like the one thing he's like undeniably great in the ring.
Yeah.
Like he could fit in there with any of the, like, you know, Danielson, Omega, Will Ospreay, like those. He is like at that level of talent in the ring. It's not the same because it's WWE, and they like by design, if matches are slowed down a bunch, you have to wrestle a certain style. So, but like, as Tyler Black is his old indie name, like Seth can do that real like high work rates, high energy stuff. He's capable of that. So like WWE matches, those are fun too. But like everything else,
that's the thing that I find so interesting watching is like you can be so good at one thing or the other thing, but if you're not good at both, if you're not good in the ring and at like being maybe not being the character, because most of the guys I like are guys that don't even feel like they're playing a character, but like being good on the mic or being good at making facial expressions or not looking like you're acting in a, you know, summer camp school play or something. The guys that can do both sides of the coin are so great, and you can be so good at one and then not good at the other, and I don't want to watch you.
I think of it as like three skills, actually, because the very greatest are all can do all three. Like if you can do two of them, you're great. The in ring, whatever your style is, I don't care. If you're great in ring, you're great in ring. That's one. Promo is another, but then like physical charisma off of mic is like the other. Like Sasha Banks, Mercedes Moné, I think she's very bad on the mic itself. Right. But beyond that, she has a ton of charisma.
Yeah, I
She's
get
like
that. I guess I kind
physically.
of roll it all into one. Like to me, it's like physical skill and then personality. And to me, personality is all of that.
For most of my life, I did too. I was like mic wrestling the two things. But like there is a third one. Shawn Michaels, for a lot of his career, was not that as great on the mic as he became later, but he always had the charisma. Like,
I guess I do get that, because I was just about to say there are certainly people who like aren't strong at like on the mic initially, and then they get whatever they needed to get in their character or their storyline or whatever, and it makes them like awesome later.
Before the show started, we were talking about Roman Reigns. I sent you a video. The shout out to one of my favorite YouTube channels, Super Eye Patch Wolf, did a incredible retrospective video on Roman Reigns' career, and what an incredible story that it ended up being in total. Like a story that they didn't set out to tell, but it just became like an emergent story that ruled. But the difference between Roman when he goes up against John Cena in that promo that everybody that's listening to this knows is the most like secondhand embarrassing thing to watch that's available on the internet.
It wasn't just embarrassing. I was like sad. I was like definitely sad watching upsetting.
It. But then you like the tribal chief. They're two different people. Essentially, and so you can become once you have, and I don't think it's even a talent thing. The talent's always there. It's just you need something to grab onto that fits you, and like once you find that, if you the talent is there, it happens.
And it's weird because I feel like now I'm like just trying to think right now on the spot. It's like once you have it always, even when your story goes up and down. Like people just that figure out how to be great at it. Stay great at it. I don't know.
So you just made me think of somebody else too that like fits that description perfectly. We've done for like the Turnbuckle Time Machine episodes, which you and I are going to be doing one of this week. By the way, shout out. So keep an eye out for that. I've seen a lot of Steve Austin in WCW, and he was stunning Steve Austin, who like it was before he broke his neck in the Owen Hart match. So like he was incredible in the ring.
Yeah,
like he was. I mean, even after the broken neck, he was incredible in the ring, but limited in what he could physically do, and just not as fast and not as explosive, and still very fast and explosive.
Right.
But like he was a phenom in the ring in WCW, and he was also like not over at all. They made him like the U.S. champ, I think. He was like a tag champ for a while with Rick Rude. Rick Rude had one of the best runs ever in WCW that I had no idea about until I started doing the show, basically. But like you go back and watch those things and you're like, oh yeah, this guy's like incredible, but nobody gives a shit.
Yeah.
And then when he came to WWE, he was the ringmaster and nobody gave a shit. And then as soon as like that clicked, oh, this character, I'll do the Stone Cold character. It's okay. Now you're great for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Like, and then that's it. You're
and
just
even if you get lulls where like your storyline kind of sucks again, you're still great though. Like, it's a
go back and watch when
thing or
Stone
something.
Cold turned heel, and we all were like, oh no, this is not. But now in retrospect, like because he did turn face again, and it was great again. Like his heel stuff was great. Now you go back to watch the Kurt Angle stuff, the comedy stuff they're doing was brilliant. He was great at that too. So like you never lose it once you get it. Like The Rock too. The Rock, like once he got it, well, it was nobody liked Rocky Maivia. Die Rocky die. Got the Rock clicked, and then he was The Rock. And then like when he went to Hollywood, it got kind of lame for a while, but it was just because like he was away and not in the wrestling world. When he came back for this like WrestleMania build and realized that like, oh, the fans are not really as into like Hollywood. Like I'm the good guy, Rock. He was like, oh, I'll just do The Rock again and be a prick. And he fucking was incredible, like immediately again. Like he was awesome. Have you watched any of that stuff? The build, the WrestleMania stuff?
No,
that's something I got to.
You mentioned it, but it was before I really started paying attention again.
So a little bit about like just how it occurred. Is Cody Rhodes? Obviously, you've seen him. He's like the biggest babyface. Like everybody loves him. I love him. He won the Royal Rumble for the second time in a row, was going to get his second shot at Roman. Everybody's like, okay, this is the time for him to finally unseat Roman. He's been champ for 5 years or whatever.
Which is like so insane.
5 years. So Triple H loves long title reigns.
It's so insane.
But like it worked because it just worked. Roman was like a badass, and it just worked as him as the dominant like final boss guy. Well, The Rock bought some kind of controlling interest in the company.
I did hear that.
And then reinserted himself into the show. And when he did it, it was going to be okay, now we're just going to have Cody say, I'll give Rock my spot. Like they did that. They did it on air and everybody was like, fucking boo.
Right. No. I think I remember you telling me this because everyone was like, did he just buy his spot back to win some
We've been watching this story for 2 years, goddammit. We need this and like you can go back and listen to the earlier, like the very beginning Turnbuckle Time or Blue Thunderpod episodes. And Dave and I are like, fuck this. What's going on here? They pivoted because The Rock saw obviously like, okay, this isn't working. I didn't expect them to not cheer for me. And they're booing him and Rocky sucks and fuck you Rocky chants and stuff. And he's like, oh, well, I'll just be The Rock again. and it was like overnight it went from like, oh no, they're ruining WrestleMania to this is the greatest thing I've ever seen.
Honestly, credit to them for doing that pivot because back in like Vince McMahon days, he dug his heels into anything he wanted to do and he would never
dig his heels in and then also just change his mind 5 minutes before air and then like have no idea where things were going to go. Like the best pivot in wrestling history was The Rock WrestleMania thing.
Yeah, because
and
I remember
it led to an incredible story. Like I
remember you being like, he's just buying his way back in because what was the movie? Black Adam sucked or something, and like he's trying to get popularity. It was popularity again.
COVID happened. He wasn't able to make a few movies, and like his movies are not doing as well. And then like whenever he would do his occasional returns to WWE over the years, it was always just to do like
promotional stuff.
I'm a good guy, but I'm very clearly doing promotional stuff. I'm going to just do my like bring a heel out and call him a trailer park trash or whatever, but not really do the character.
Yeah.
Just never really be edgy at all.
Yeah.
And when I say edgy, I don't mean in the modern way where everybody's like, yeah, cringe edgy. Like edgy in the way that edgy can be cool.
Yeah.
Like he would never do that. But then when they did this pivot and he just came out and like started swearing at the fans and calling them all trailer park trash, it was immediately like, oh, he's back and it rules.
Yeah, because
and
he was amazing back in the heyday. He could say anything and I would eat it up because
I
it
was
great.
so happy to see that return, and it was like overnight. It was literally overnight. It was one day he was like, okay, this is what we're doing, and everybody hates it. No. And we were so used to Vince for all those years that like, oh, they're just going to do the disappointing thing. This sucks. And then like the day that he did the turn, I'm going to go back to like Bad Guy Rock, which is the Rock that we all loved. It was immediate. It was like, made me so happy.
And you know what? I think maybe he's so good at that because in like Hollywood, in all of his interviews stuff, he's always like good guy Rock. So he's good guy Dwayne Johnson, and I feel like he needed to get that out of his system.
And we're not just meandering here because that actually dovetails pretty nicely into my thought on both this Money in the Bank that we just had and the start of this Raw. So, like we mentioned, Punk came out, did his promo, and his primary feud right now is with Drew McIntyre. You probably haven't seen them do too much interacting yet, right?
No, all I saw was like Drew McIntyre talking about the bracelet and stuff. And to be honest, I was like, who's the good guy and who's the bad guy in this?
So that's the thing. Is Drew is the way the story is being told, they consider Drew the heel.
Okay.
Because he is arrogant. He keeps like making decisions that are arrogant decisions.
Okay.
Like he's not being forward thinking enough. Like, you should know this guy's going to attack me because it's been happening, but he's too arrogant for that. But the truth is, for me, like Drew is absolutely in the right in like almost the entirety of this. Like this all stems from basically Drew injured when Punk got injured at the Royal Rumble. They wove that into the story, which I love whenever they do that. Weave a real injury.
Yeah.
Just make a story out of it. You make, lemonade out of lemons kind of thing. But all Drew did really was like then kind of further hurt Punk's arm a little bit.
Yeah.
And then since then, it's been like months and months and months, like 8 months or something, or 6 months. Punk has been like trolling and attacking and ruining Drew's life. Like he's cost him the world title twice as retaliation for like kind of injuring him one time. That's it. That's all. Like Drew Boy at WrestleMania, he won the title, and then like Punk cost the previous Money in the Bank winner was Damian Priest.
Yeah.
And Punk got Damian. Led Damian Priest to winning the belt off of Drew immediately because Drew gloated for 5 minutes. That's literally all he did. He like held the belt up. It was like, put it on Instagram. And then like Punk attacked him and beat him up with like the arm brace he had and like fucked him up real bad. And then Damian Priest came and won the title. So like, to me, Punk is absolutely in the wrong here. He's a maniac, a troll, and like he's doing all of the worst things. And also, like we were talking about with The Rock, for me, and I think people are forgetting this because not as many people are calling for it as I am, and I did for his whole AEW career too, because I think people have forgotten. CM Punk is one of the greatest heels that's ever lived. And we haven't been able to see him be a heel in any of this comeback. He was a babyface the entire time he was in AEW, except for like a couple of situational matches where he played heel, and it was fucking awesome.
Yeah.
In those couple of matches where he played heel, and he's just great at that. He can talk. He's a great talker. He's good at both, obviously. And when he's a babyface, he's always kind of a tweener because he's got an edge to him.
Sure.
And like, he rubs a lot of people the wrong way, obviously.
Yeah.
But like, as a heel, he's perfection. He's like Ric Flair. He's The Rock level of heel.
Yes,
like,
got it.
And I want to see that. And I think the story they're telling lends itself to that. But we're still like, because they want to sell the merch and
right,
get
because
the
they're
pops.
like, everyone loves him, so naturally the inclination is, if everyone loves you, you should be a good guy. But the reality is, I love the bad guys that are really good at being bad guys
100%.
more than I love the good
And it's
guys.
one of those things where like the money butts up against, for me, I think artistically the better story and the more interesting, more fun thing to watch. And honestly, I'd be more apt to buy a Punk t-shirt if he was a heel.
Right. Oh.
But unfortunately, most people are not. And like, especially the zillion kids that watch WWE.
Maybe, but I was just going to say, I have a 14-year-old son at home whose favorite characters are all the heels.
It's 14 is a very, I'm going to be a fan of the heel age.
You're edgy. You're an edgy kid. So it's like, but that is who he likes. He's drawn to all the heel characters now.
Yeah. And your kid's personality also dictates some of that too, in a good way, I think. But most of the masses buy they're
Hulk
Jey Uso.
Hulk Hogan ripping his tank top off with the American flag behind him.
They're day one-ish. Yeah. They're Jey Uso, like he is like I don't want everyone to see Jey Uso be a heel ever again, because he is like the best babyface. He's the best dumb guy friend you got. Like, and they all love him. That's the audience. So like they want to sell the merch, so they're not going to do the Punk as a heel thing, I don't think. And it breaks my heart because like 2 years in AEW, I didn't get to see it, and now like I don't think I'm going to get to see it. He probably signed a 3-year deal. That's usually what sometimes it'll be a 5-year. It's almost always a 5 or a 3-year deal in both AEW and WWE. But Punk's 44, so it's probably a 3-year deal.
Yeah.
Maybe at some point, like they'll do the heel thing with him. But like what I was talking about, like very few people can match up with Punk on the mic in WWE. Drew is one of the very few that comes real close.
Yeah,
like
and I haven't really
kind of can.
I haven't gotten to see that, because the only little bit of him talking that I saw in the last couple weeks was like Punk wasn't there and he was just kind of monologuing, doing a promo in the ring, and like not playing off of anybody. So it was just kind of he's just talking,
until Punk is cleared, they kind of have to do it, and they've been clever about it, the way that they've like kept them apart. But they did have a. It might have been my favorite thing that they've done on WWE TV in like the last year. They had one segment where like Drew was sitting on the announce table and they were going back and forth. It was like magic. It was really great. It's the most interesting, really kind of, well, maybe until Dynamite happened, it's the most interesting story that is being told in wrestling for me is the Drew Punk thing. I just think that if you just set the characters as good guy, bad guy the right way instead of the way that's going to make the most money, it would be so much better. And I want it so bad. It breaks my heart too that like the only thing it was right that Punk is gone from AEW. He's in the right place now, but I really would have liked to have seen the CM Punk MJF get their second part of the story, because I do think there was like more of that story, because MJF is probably the only guy that can like match or out with Punk on the mic when they're face to face. Those were incredible promo battles. But like, so as far as this current thing goes, though, what happened at Money in the Bank, and they pop. What happened at Money in the Bank? They went over like to open Raw. They did like a little recap thing, so we could talk about that too right now. And it ties into what we were just discussing. But the Drew versus I'm sorry, I shouldn't say versus the ladder match for the actual briefcase. Drew Andrade somehow, even though he hasn't really done anything on TV. Carmelo Hayes, who I think is doesn't have a win on WWE TV since he came up from NXT, was in the ladder match for some reason. Chad Gable, your boy, Kurt Angle. Kurt Angle in his
their names
hair.
Even they're so perfectly matched.
Special Needs Jey Uso and LA Knight. Have you had much LA Knight interaction yet?
No.
He is a a physical embodiment of WWE. He can't really wrestle.
So draw WWE as a person,
it's
and
LA
that's
Knight.
what okay.
It's LA. Okay. He has like 3 super over catchphrases. He's a good promo, but in a very specific way. Like, honestly, a great promo in that way. And that way is talk like Stone Cold and The Rock did in the 90s. And he does that 100%. Like, he's very good at it. But, like, can't really wrestle. Got an interesting look. Super over. People love him. But, like, it's just the promo and the look, really. But, like, he belonged in this match because he's, like, super over. He's, like, I don't know. He's, like eviler. He's a babyface, but in my mind, like an eviler or less authentic version of Jey Uso, kind of. Like, Jey Uso can talk, but it's more natural. He's, like, he's dummy, and he's got a bunch of catchphrases, and they're all stupid, but they're from him. They're, like, from his art. LA Knight is more, like, manufactured feeling.
Got it.
But it's the same kind of vibe. And Jey Uso could, and I think if he put his heart back into it, in the future, could still, like, wrestle a pretty good match if he wanted to.
Yeah.
LA Knight's just not very talented in the ring. He's just, like, a muscly guy who can talk good and has a look. So, and my favorite thing that happened in the ladder match was Jey Uso and LA Knight. They both have their catchphrases. Yeet. Doesn't make any sense, but it's over, whatever. Like, and LA Knight's is yeah, because his thing is everything he says, like every sentence he says, he at the end of the sentence he goes yeah. So then the crowd goes yeah. So they both got up at the top of the ladder and they were exchanging punches, and of course the crowd was yeet, yeah. Yeet with every punch thrown. It was the most WWE thing you could possibly do, and it was great because, like, it's lean into what you are.
Yeah.
Know what you are. That's why I've come around so much on Jey Uso, is because he's like, know what you are. That is what you are,
yeah.
And it's fine. It's fine. It's not an insult to say that the in-ring stuff doesn't really matter too much in WWE.
Because he's playing to his strengths.
It's a whole other bunch of skills, too, that you'd have to be a performer in WWE.
And you need those guys, because otherwise you end up with guys who aren't great in the ring and can't do the character stuff.
Yeah,
and then it's boring as shit.
Like,
so.
For my personal taste, yes, I wish they would get rid of the performance center, let all the wrestlers wrestle their own style, at their own pace. And that would be more fun for me to watch because I wouldn't have to fast forward half the matches. But, like, all the other shit's great. Like, their entrances are way better than AEW's. Like, all the production stuff and, like, the skill level of these guys of, like, LA Knight and Jey Uso are real. They're real things. They're just different things. Yeah. Like, that's all. But what happened? Drew won the Money in the Bank ladder match, which everybody kind of saw coming because it really, Jey Uso was the only other one that there was a chance that could win, because, like, they weren't going to put the title on.
And then what are you doing with that story?
Like, it would be fun, whatever it is, and people would cheer for it. So, like, it wouldn't have to really make sense. But, like, LA Knight is, like, over, but he's not Jey Uso over.
Okay.
Like, so you wouldn't really want to have him, like, threatening for a title or whatever. So it had to be Drew, because Drew is the most, like, believable that is not currently in some kind of other. Like, Chad Gable would be believable too, but he's got 5 storylines going on right now, so it wasn't going to be him. So, like, it was Drew, and he cashed in his Money in the Bank, like, same day.
Immediately.
Didn't love that.
I prefer, like, I'm going to wait till everyone forgets I have it, and then I'm going to cash in.
And that's part of the arrogance thing. He said beforehand, I think, that, if I win this, I'm going to cash in immediately. So, like, be ready, which is, like, it's an arrogant thing. So that's why he's the heel or whatever. Although, to me, that's kind of a babyface thing to do. Instead of, like, using it to be a sneak.
Opportunistic thing.
He did it in the most babyface way possible, which was to insert himself into the main event and make it a triple threat, actual fair match.
Yeah.
Which he was then screwed out of by CM Punk again. So, like, if you're, like, a writer and you're structuring this, if you're doing, like, an outline of the story, Drew McIntyre is clearly the good guy here. He did, like, the honest, most upstanding thing, and he won the thing, the money, without cheating, won the Money in the Bank briefcase, which is like a tool basically for you to cheat within the rules.
Yes, exactly.
Decided, I'm not going to use it that way. I will use it in a way that is much more fair and put myself into a current match.
After having already wrestled.
Yes, after having already wrestled. A ladder match. And then he gets screwed by a guy that, like, the worst thing Drew's done to him in the last 6 months.
He took his bracelet.
But that was, like, that's Drew retaliating for Punk screwing him like from the title the month prior. So it's all been just Punk after Drew the whole time. Like, but people love Punk, so
yeah.
I love Punk, but I just want to love him as a bad guy. But I was unhappy about after watching Money in the Bank like that, the main event stuff.
Yeah,
I did not like any of that at all because primarily of what I'm talking about. Like I'm just like the dynamic is wrong here. I'm softened on it a bit every time because every time CM Punk comes out and talks, it's like he's amazing.
Yeah.
So you can't like. All right, I'm still as into the.
You're gonna like him no matter what he's doing because
I'm still like is into that story as I can be. Like it's the best thing they got going. It's not my favorite story in wrestling now though because another thing happened in another show where it is a much more like I can be much more emotionally invested in a logical way in that story because like they told the story in a way that the good guy is the good guy and the bad guy is the bad guy and it's very clear why they are each in those roles and what their motivations were and like why I should be cheering for one person over the other. And it's not just because I think one person's cooler than the other. It's because the story is very compelling. And like, I think this could be that too, but they're not going to let it because they want to sell that merch.
Yeah.
The other stuff that happened at Money in the Bank, people were like surprised and kind of pissed about this. And I thought it was absolutely the right decision. Sami Zayn beat your boy, Braun Breaker.
Oh, and I realized part of why I hate him and his name so much is just because of the way that the announce team says it.
That's why I'm going to say it that way every time.
Like it. It's like they're doing it intentionally to make me angry at the name. So I did, and I can say that I'm slowly not coming around on his name or his look or anything about his ring persona. But I could see his skill, and I was
he's super talented.
I'm like, okay, I get why he's here, but just fix it.
He's super talented. I mean, and he like just the genetics of like, he comes from a family of like historically incredible wrestlers. Yeah. At least before the steroid abuse. But like, there was a lot of stuff online about after this match, like, well, because Sami Zayn won clean. It was a pretty good match, and then Sami did his finisher. My
note actually says Sami Zayn with a little heart, and then it says not just because he beat Braun Breaker. So I like Sami Zayn, and it's not strictly for that reason.
But people were like kind of pissed because they're like, "Oh, well, Braun's the new thing. You should be that. You can't beat him. You can't have him beat." Because they're so used to like WWE does a thing or did a thing under Vince McMahon where you just couldn't have anybody lose clean because it made you look weak. Yeah. Like, no, it's a sport. It's supposed to be a sport that we're watching. You're going to lose some matches. And Sami Zayn just beat Gunther at WrestleMania, who was the Intercontinental Champion for the longest time in the history of the belt. Yeah. He was undefeated for like 3 years. Sammy's the guy that beat him. And people are like, how could Sami beat Braun Breaker clean? Who like just fucking came up from NXT. He beat Gunther, the scariest guy in a whole goddamn roster. Like, of course he could beat Braun too. What are you talking about? Like, the only guy that beat Gunther. I think still in his career in WWE. And unfortunately, they're continuing that story. We'll talk about it when we get to it. But I was happy about that result very much. So we talked about the triple threat for the. Punk screwed, in an ancillary way, screwed Seth too, but Damian Priest gets to hang on to the belt. Yeah. Because Punk is clearly a heel. The women's Money in the Bank ladder match, Tiffany Stratton. Have you seen Tiffany Stratton yet? I know you're not watching SmackDown.
No, I don't think I have.
She's incredible in the ring. She was like a world-class gymnast. Okay. Trained to become a wrestler, and it shows it like clearly. And she's got a great character too. She's like evil Paris Hilton, basically. if Paris Hilton was like kind of jacked and an incredible athlete. She won the women's Money in the Bank ladder match, which was the match of the night by a million miles for me. It was like an awesome match. Yeah. Which is like, it's so great that we have repeatedly said, "Oh, this is the best match of the night," or one of the best, or this is and it's the women. Right. I mean, like this second, both this Raw and the Dynamite that we'll talk about on the other episode, it was the like main stuff going down, all women centric.
Yeah.
And we couldn't have timed it out better to have you rejoin wrestling as a
right.
as a woman and come on the show. That when I think like women's wrestling in North America is kind of peaking right now. Like,
it's like amazing. It's amazing just how much screen time they get, and then that it's all really good.
Yeah, and like the story, and I thought that like this Raw that we're doing right now, the end of it and then the end of Dynamite were like the best way WWE can do their story kind of stuff. They did.
Yeah.
And then the best way that AEW can do their kind of story stuff, they did, both with all just women.
Yeah.
It was all women. And it was great. There was a 6-man tag, Bloodline, shitty Bloodline. It's like not Roman Reigns Bloodline, so they suck. And it like they exist for a good reason, because it's going to be great when Roman comes back and gets rid of them. But they're just a bunch of like Jacob Fatu he's a very talented wrestler. The rest of them are just not much. Yeah. They're like not great at anything. There's just a bunch of kind of bland Samoan guys. But it's going to rule because they recently turned on Paul Heyman, who was like
I did see a little bit of that.
Man. My tribals, because you're not my tribal chief. So when Roman comes back, the world's going to go nuts. Me included. They won their match. I forget how. Cheated somehow against it was Cody, Kevin Owens, and Randy Orton, who I think I've mentioned to you I hated for almost his entire career, and now I love.
Yeah.
Which is basically the same arc that I have with Edge, who they were like Randy and Edge were tag team partners for a long time, rated RKO, and I disliked them for most of their careers for similar reasons. And right now I love them both. Randy Orton has found something in himself as a human being. I don't know if he if a religious experience or what, but like he's like an elder statesman, helping young guys in real life out, and like every young guy on the roster now is like, Randy's the best dude. He was a guy I've mentioned several times on this podcast who was shitting in women's gym bags for years as a prank, quote unquote. Like he was that level of piece of shit for like forever. And he talks about it now. He's like, I was a fucking asshole. I don't know why I was like that for forever. I love him. And I love the character. I love him as a person now, like that he could change to that level. And all the stuff he's doing in the ring is different. And it's just, the stories are better. He's more interesting.
Now I gotta pay attention to him.
Yeah. And he was with Kevin Owens and Cody Rhodes. Kevin Owens, my absolute favorite guy in WWE, and Cody Rhodes, one of my favorite guys in WWE. So I should have been interested in this match, but the Bloodline without Roman is just, it's not just that. It's Bloodline without Roman, and the real Bloodline was the Usos.
Yeah.
And then like Sammy was part of it, and like that was interesting. This is a bunch of Samoan guys. Most of them are like new. Like Solo Sikoa is the guy that now calls himself the leader. He's the guy that Roman's gonna feud with or whatever. He was like a midway through addition to the Bloodline as like an enforcer guy, silent enforcer guy.
Yeah.
And like, so he's like the oldest Bloodline guy, but he's still kind of new, and everybody else has been added in the last like month.
So these are the guys that would play the fake security in all of the previous wrestling shows.
I'm more like, it's a little bit different because like Tama Tonga was a New Japan wrestler for a bunch of years. Not very good there. And then like Jacob Fatu would be more like the security guy.
Yeah.
So he was like he's not that young, but he's still 31 or something. So still pretty young for wrestling. But a big indie guy. He was like an MLW champ for a long time and stuff. So like, yes, he was the guy, like if you were in his town, he'd be the security guy. Yeah. But he's the best thing about this current Bloodline. But he just joined it too, so like they just suck. They suck, and they cheated and beat guys that everybody likes. Yeah. So that kind of sucked too. So the show sucked ass, I thought. Outside of the women's match, the matches themselves, like the Sammy match was fine. The men's Money in the Bank ladder match was a pretty good match because WWE is very good at ladder matches, but like the outcomes were just uninspiring except for the women's ladder match. So that was that. We talked about Seth came out. I'm glad again he's still wearing like garish attire.
He had very nice heels on,
but like it's more stylish now. Like have you seen any of what the shit he was wearing for the last like 2 years?
No. I thought like the Cruella de Vil look was out there, and you're like, oh no, that was like way toned down.
I don't know how to describe it outside of like if you gave a 4-year-old like a bunch of fabric and like scissors and like a sewing machine, and somehow like they didn't kill themselves with the sewing machine, like, and said, okay, do something with this, and then somehow found a way to like put that end result on your body. That's what he would wear regularly to the ring, and that was his quote unquote character. It was dressed like an asshole. Now he seems to have like realized, yes, garish is good. Macho Man, Ric Flair, like that's good, but you still need to be stylish. You still need to have some sense of like style, something like, because this was he had like dope heels on, like Prince would wear or something, you know, like, and his regular the other gear he was wearing was just like normal human clothes. Yeah, like just bedazzled, just like just get rhinestones all over it, which it's cool. Like that, I like it. So I enjoyed that, and I did think he came away not feeling like a total dork asshole at the end of this. Well, yeah, he cannot talk.
He was
Punk,
boring, but like, also I think because he was boring, and because I could see where else all this was going, he was like an and also. It was like it was just. He has
been that. I think we talked about it last week. He's been the third wheel.
Yeah.
Unbearably, like since before the build to WrestleMania, because he was like the third wheel there, and like at WrestleMania, they did a thing story wise with him, which I really appreciated. But I didn't catch on to that's what they were doing, because they never do like subtle storytelling, and they kind of did a subtle, interesting, kind of deep thing with him. Everybody missed it, including me, because it was on WWE. Like, and then in retrospect, I'm like, oh, you really tried a thing there. Unfortunately, nobody's going to catch the thing you try unless you change the way you tell all of your stories. But like the whole build, everything going into WrestleMania, and then in WrestleMania, and then everything since, he's like, oh, he's the extra dude.
Yeah, it was like he was an extra or filler person that they just plopped out there.
Absolutely.
So there'd be another body in the ring.
And like, I do like, though, that the stuff he said to Punk, even though it wasn't as interesting to listen to him say it.
What did he say? Because I blanked out.
Talking about Punk is like you are a gaslighter. And that's what you do. Yeah. And you also, your biggest sin, always, and this is like, I love when promos bring in some level of reality. I don't like the, too closely to reality. They did that for too long, and it usually gets ugly. But I like some level of realism, and the saying that your biggest problem is that you still think CM Punk is the center of the universe.
Yeah.
And that is true, both in story and outside of that. So I was like, okay, that's cool. That makes me a little bit more interested in Seth and the story. Really, though, I'm like, I don't want this to be paid off with like a triple threat match, though, because I want it's got to be Drew and Punk, because they're really the too much interesting. But I did like a little bit of what Seth did here, which is saying a lot, because I have not liked much of what Seth has done for quite a while. We are then. They did the other big thing that happened at Money in the Bank, because it ties in here too. Punk mentioned it. John Cena came out at Money in the Bank and said, I'm retiring. I'm going on a retirement tour, basically.
And I knew that
3 more matches,
just because I exist on Reddit, and it was just the immediate news.
And I personally, I don't think they're going to do this, because WWE just they book differently than I would. But I would give Punk to Cena for his final match. I think that would be. It's my favorite match they've ever done in the whole company, like in the history. Going back to Hulkamania, is Cena Punk at Money in the Bank. It was incredible, and I think that would be an awesome last match. And I would let Cena win because Punk won the first time. They won't do that. They'll do something like The Rock or something like that or whatever. Yeah. But I think I think those two are like intrinsically tied because they did kind of represent for a lot of the Punk's run the two different opposing wrestling fan ideas of how wrestling should be.
Yeah.
Cena was the very WWE like Vincey way of doing things, and Punk was like an indie guy who saw things differently, talked differently, works differently. It's what's the thing I forget what the wording of the phrase is, but people always talk about like how you're a Democrat until you're a certain age, and when you buy a house or whatever, you become a Republican. I don't believe that at all. Obviously, my politics I've not gotten into very deep on this podcast, but you guys are pretty familiar, I think, with where I lean. Yeah, and I'm old, and I've only gone further into the direction that I already was. But that does happen with most people, and a lot of people, and that's kind of what Punk represents. I think is like he got corporate-y. He's the middle-aged guy now. So like that's what happens. You're not the rebel anymore, really. Like
now you're looking out your front window and wondering what the teenagers across the street are doing.
Super interesting story if you wanted to tell that, because if you did get one of your younger indier kind of guys, they don't have a ton of them in WWE, but there's a few. To kind of call him out on that and tell that John Cena story that he did now, I think that'd be awesome. Yeah. Punk would have to agree to it, and I'm not sure he totally would, because I think in his heart he still thinks he's a rebel. But I think it'd be awesome. So like Punk mentioned that, gave props to Cena, which that's weird in and of itself, just because I don't think he's ever said a good thing about Cena on air. We found out at this point that Dirty Dom, against his wishes, is going to get a tag match to end the show with Liv Morgan against his dad and Zelina. So, are you familiar with Dirty Dom and Rey Mysterio's, like, their history match-wise?
No.
So, Dom has never beaten Rey.
Oh, okay.
It's like a big deal. They've had several matches now, like singles, tag, everything. Rey always comes out on top. Oh. So that plays a little bit into, actually plays a lot into why I love the end of the show as much as I did. But I'm unhappy about this. I did realize that, like, he's being sexually harassed.
He is.
Pretty heavy duty for this whole time.
The stretching stuff, I was like, whoa, this is a bit much.
The Jack Tripper fucking Three's Company scene that we got. Yeah. Yes, it was a bit much. But, like, again, WWE, I don't understand necessarily the heel. Like, he's still considered a heel, but I'm like, we should feel bad for this dude. Like, he is, he's getting assaulted, basically, against his will.
Somebody new to this who didn't know any of his history. He has a significant other. Well, and it sounds like the significant other maybe even isn't, like, fully
she was kind of abusive.
Like, that's what I mean.
Too. That was their whole story.
I feel like
the story was that she was like a dom, essentially, before he, like, was into it, and then he realized he was into it.
Maybe,
so, like,
but the way that it ended, I was kind of like, is he just afraid of her?
He definitely was into it. Okay, for most of their relationship, for sure. It's undoubted. At the beginning of it, it was not clear. Like, she was a dom before necessarily being accepted as one.
Gotcha. But But the Liv stuff, though, is very much like, this is not consensual at all.
She's great at this character she's doing, but I'm like, he is the victim here. He's clearly the victim here. He's still the victim at the end of this because he gets emotionally manipulated in a way that is, like, kind of deep and interesting. At this point, we got it's day one-ish time. You ready to yeet?
Can we yeet the word yeet? Because it's so bad.
It's everything.
It's so
my favorite thing about the segment we're about to talk about was yeet adjacent, was yeet related, because it made me laugh super hard. Because I guess I should have explained this. The yeet and the hand thing are kind of synonymous. So, like, this is a yeet too. He says yeet. It doesn't always mean the hand thing, but also this is also a yeet. We got Jey Uso against Kurt Angle Jr., your guy. Pretty good match, actually. I mean, Gable's matches are always pretty good. I got pissed off at Michael Cole at one point because he fucking Gable did a overhead belly-to-belly suplex like out of the ring, which is an awesome move and very difficult to do.
Yeah.
And Michael Cole has been calling wrestling matches for 40 years. Called it a backdrop. So I was like, I can just, you don't need to be Excalibur doing like Poison Ranas and like call it a Gogo Plata or whatever. Like, you don't have to know all the names of all the moves. But a backdrop and a belly-belly suplex, come on, man. Like, you've been calling this shit for literally my whole life. Like, please. I hate him. I hate Michael Cole. But the way that this match ended was spooky stuff. So we got like the dark.
Yeah.
Lights went out.
And then Jey Uso did his cartoon character exit.
That's what. Yeah. That's what he yeeted. He looked down the lens of the hard cam.
Did I loved it?
It went yeet. Went hands up and noped out of the ring. Like. Rolled out like Scooby fucking Doo.
I did laugh when that happened.
And I was like, I think Jey Uso might be my favorite thing in WWE. I've come around on him so hard. I loved it. It was absolutely the most cartoonish thing.
It was super cartoony.
But it was timed like his comic timing was on the money. I'm like, I loved it. I loved it.
It really was.
But we got more spooky stuff with the Wyatt Six. There was another VHS.
I'm over the VHS thing. It's gone too long now.
I understand what they're doing with it because it is very big in like horror.
Yeah.
Right now in that world and that like community, be it on YouTube or in movies too, like that aesthetic, the VHS aesthetic.
Yeah.
I think it kind of kicked off with the VHS movies, which I like most of those movies, but it's like a huge part of the horror aesthetic right now. So they're leaning in. It's WWE, so they're going to hit you over the head with a giant mallet with everything they do.
Like even just you can still play a VHS, but like don't have the same like she comes out with the box
with the thing, and you have to hold up the VHS and say it's a VHS.
It could be like.
And then
Chad Gable finds one in the dressing room and is like, "What is this?" And then they play it. Like, do that.
Oh yeah.
Don't.
It's amazing. Took you 2 weeks. You're a better booker than WWE. But Triple H is a genius.
But I'm also hoping that because it kind of pivoted a little this week and you actually saw him in person, that they're getting away from that now.
My thought exactly was like, okay, now it's a psychological thing, loss of his brother. He's a real guy. Like they showed, so we're talking about is they did all their spooky stuff, but then they actually showed Bo Dallas, I don't know what he's going to go by. I don't know if they're going to still call him Bo Dallas now because it wasn't back when he was Bo Dallas. It wasn't recognized on air that his brother was Bray Wyatt because it was two different characters.
Yeah.
But now it clearly is.
I mean, he talked about it.
So I don't know
what
they're going to if they're going to call him something Rotunda because that's what they actually are, Rotundas. Their dad was a wrestler too.
Okay.
So he may have a different name, but like him as a real person was sitting in Adam Pearce's office, and like they just kind of foreshadowed, they're going to
like the door closed on him.
Yeah, they were going to have some kind of a conversation like as a person, not as spooky. So I think it's not ghosts. I think it's just like maybe in honor of my brother, we're going to do this thing that he had planned and use it as like. More like how like Mick Foley would use his different personas to be intimidating or whatever. Like use it as a tool in real life,
which I would
not
like way
be
more.
Ghosty Undertaker, fucking electricity, lightning powers. Like I hate all that shit.
Yeah, and still have your gang come out with their creepy ass costumes on. Like it'll still be cool.
It's a very intimidating ass thing to do, and like could help you win wrestling matches too, which fits better into. I think we talked a little bit about like whenever you do when you lean into the spooky stuff to the point where it's like supernatural, that always gets fucked up in the end because you can't. You
could keep it supernatural and ridiculous, and then just every week have Jey Uso Scooby Doo his way out of there, and then it would be super funny.
That would be 10 out of 10 every time then. But yes. But he could still do Scooby Doo if it's like they're just acting like axe murderers instead of ghosts.
They should actually just have him appear every time they're around. He should just pop in for 1 second just to leave.
He can be what Carlito currently is to Judgment Day, which is my favorite thing about Judgment Day.
It's hilarious.
He could be the funny, like the comic relief part of the Wyatt Six every week. I would be fine with that, 100%. Next, we got not Otis. I call him not Otis. Do you know who Otis is? It's the guy that was the guy that's shaped like a square.
No.
He is your guy, Chad Gable.
Yeah.
Like he was the one that he was like one of the three people that he was bullying, and then Otis broke away.
Yeah.
I call Bronson Reed, the guy that was wrestling in this next match, not Otis, because he is Otis. If you took Otis and just like in a video game, like changed skins, so like made him just different hair and like made him darker or whatever, except he has none of the like charisma or in-ring ability of he's like okay in the ring, but Otis is very good. Okay. and Otis is like super charismatic and funny and interesting, and he can act, and like this guy can't, so he kind of sucks. But he had a match with Pete Dunne, which was I thought an okay match.
I think this is why I was like, this show is boring, because I have no notes. My note for this match was match number 2, and that is it.
That's pretty much how I would have. Yeah. Okay.
that was it.
It was a match that happened. It does give me an opportunity to tell you about Pete Dunne. Pete Dunne, you couldn't really see it here because his opponent not great.
Yeah.
But he's actually very, very good wrestler.
I appreciated that he has like a not WWE-ified name.
So what we're going to talk about right now is when Vince was there. So Pete Dunne was, he started with the company. He was an indie guy, wrestled like, he was in Rev Pro, which is the biggest British promotion, independent British promotion in wrestling. Like big up and comer dude. Went to NXT UK, which is the thing that WWE created to try to kill Rev Pro and all other independents in UK, because there was a big booming UK wrestling movement happening.
Yeah.
It didn't kill them, thankfully, because NXT UK didn't really do very well. But Pete Dunne was there then. When he signed with WWE, was in NXT UK for a while, was very good there. Came over to regular NXT, was awesome there as Pete Dunne. He was Pete Dunne the whole time. Call him Pete Dunne. Came over to the main roster. Vince McMahon put a silly hat on him, made him wear suspenders, and because he's British, he's a British Cockney fighter, and they called him Butch, and he was fucking Scrappy Doo. He was Scrappy Doo to Sheamus. Sheamus he had a stable with called the Brawling Brutes with Sheamus and another dude, another British guy, two big guys, and then their Scrappy Doo was Butch. So that's what he had to be put through for like 2 fucking years.
Yeah. And meanwhile, my only thought was, I like that his name is just Pete Dunne.
Yeah. Yeah. Even the WWE, the fatheads were like, Butch, come on, man. Pete Dunne's pretty good. Like, let him be just like like he was believable as a smaller guy that would win against bigger guys because he was so nasty. He does the thing where he's breaking your fingers and stuff, and it's like believable that he could win against people that he's physically outmatched against. And then he was ridiculous for 2 years. And then, thank God, when Vince went to Barbados or wherever he is hiding, and Triple H took over, he was like, you can be Pete Dunne again. Yeah. So we got that.
Nice
and
move.
Here in this show, they kind of teased that he might like team back up with Sheamus, or I don't know if they're going to feud or be a tag team. I would be good with either.
Yeah.
Because I like both guys, and I like big guy, little guy tag teams. And I also think that they could have an awesome match, like if they wrestled. So I'm good with that. But much better, not as Butch, with his little chimney sweep hat and his
You're gonna
suspenders.
have to pull up a picture of him for me so I can see.
Since we can audio edit, I will just edit this out from the time that I'm taking to pull it up. But I will pull it up right now. I always forget that I have a computer right here that I can.
Yeah, for some of the stuff that I was away from, it's nice to get filled in a little bit so I have some context. I mean, your descriptions are very good, but
I appreciate that.
Sometimes I just want to see.
That was him as Butch.
Oh no.
Yeah, this.
Yeah.
That was Vince's idea of like a tough, chimney sweepy, Cockney British.
To be honest, you could even dress him in that stupid outfit and just still call him Pete Dunne, and he would be like, it would fit.
Yeah.
It would fit.
But he had to be Butch. I don't know what the fuck that is.
What is that?
Is there a British guy named Butch? Is that a British thing? I thought that was like an Americanized kind of.
Yeah, me too.
I don't know. Vince was stupid too, though, on top of being a monster. So, I'm glad they didn't make him cut his hair. They made him put it in a bun and stick it under a hat. Yeah, because the long hair looks badass with the shaved side and stuff. So like, thankfully, you got to keep that. Because look how much more intimidating this guy is. Just as a regular human being.
Yeah.
So I'm a Pete Dunne guy. The reason that he was wrestling in this match and as a singles match, he actually is already in a tag team, a very good talented tag team that's never going to get over in WWE because they're like really good in the ring. The New Catch Republic is the name of the team, which is even like a very insidery wrestlery name for a tag team for WWE. But his tag team partner, whose name is escaping me right now, but he's very good too. He's another British dude. But he just had a fairly serious injury, I think, like on a house show or something. So now Pete Dunne he had nothing to do. So they stuck him in a match with not Otis. And it was. I'm
still blown away after all these years from what I last knew. How many non-American / Canadian wrestlers there are?
Yeah, like it happened kind of gradually. Because with Vince there, it was always, if you were from anywhere outside of America or Canada, you had to be some insane stereotype.
You had to be like, the Iron Sheik.
Yeah. Or like a chimney sweep, you know, like you got to be butch. But the truth is, there were way more of those guys over the years, even with Vince. They were all stupid stereotypes, but it was just way more of those guys. And then when AEW happened, that was immediately just, we're like going to grab up every indie wrestler that is of note in America, but also we're trying to get all the best wrestlers from everywhere. So they got a bunch of, as many as they could, Japanese guys and like from New Japan. And Takeshita is one of my favorite dudes. It was like from a different promotion in Japan, like half the roster is Canadian. Obviously a bunch of luchadors and stuff like that. So like that was a giant injection of just international wrestling. And then at the same time, the thing I was talking about, that explosion of UK wrestling, that happened. So then there was like a zillion great British wrestlers all at once because it was just became a thing. It was just a thing that happened. It was a big explosion in the culture. Wrestling has been, and like I've actually gone back now because I'm a big, huge fucking dork, and I've done a ton of research into like UK wrestling. I've been watching a bunch of matches from the 70s and 80s it's called World of Sport, and it's actually a big deal in the UK because, you know, they had like 3 channels because it's the UK. Like, oh, it's BBC 1 through 3. That's what we have. And it was like on one of those channels every night at 7:00 or whatever was World of Sport Wrestling. And it was just a single camera, like hard cam. They didn't do any cuts or anything. It's like, it was as dryly as you could possibly do wrestling. But it was always in these like little like countryside British places with like grannies like getting super pissed at heels for doing very small infractions. Like, but the wrestlers themselves were absolutely incredible. There's a guy, Rollerball Rocco, who I now consider one of the greatest wrestlers of all time, who we knew nothing about until like this year. But that's like where the British Bulldogs originally came from and stuff. But it was a big deal. But then that show went off the air, so like it wasn't for a long time in the UK. Wrestling was not as big a thing for like a decade. And then with the advent of the internet, a few like smaller promotions were able to get their stuff out there, and then RevPro blew up because of that. So then like a bunch of people started trying to be wrestlers, and now we have a zillion great British wrestlers, including maybe the best wrestler on earth, Will Bloody Ospreay, the Billy Goat Bruv. At this point, Seth and Damian Priest had a little interaction and back, and Seth, I like this too because I like when they stick to what they say because they didn't usually do that in WWE. Seth said before this match that if he lost, no matter what, if I lose the Money in the Bank, I'm not going to challenge you again. As long as you have the belt, I'm not going to challenge you again. And he says to Damian, as long as you don't have any of your people come down and fuck with us, I will not challenge you again. And he's like, you didn't have any of your Judgment Day people come down. I lost, even though it was fucked up. I lost, so I'm not going to challenge you again. So I'm like, oh, okay, good. I like that.
You're like, you won't be and alsoing for a little while.
Yes. At this point, we got Sami Zayn coming out, and then Braun Breaker. Braun comes out. Sami's doing cut a promo. Braun comes out, pretends like he's like gonna be like, I give you props. You know, I didn't think you were gonna be the one guy that beat me, but you did. But then he just spears him.
Yeah. I wish he wouldn't talk.
He talks. He's so dumb. His dumminess really.
Yeah.
In a very Steinery way too.
Yeah.
Like it's.
Yeah.
He also, I noticed he fucking smashed his head on the Intercontinental belt when he speared Sammy. He didn't sell it or anything.
You know, I think had you not told me that he was a Steiner, I would have eventually figured it out because
he sounds like a big dummy jock from Michigan.
And the cross trainer Nikes with the jeans and stuff. Like I was like, oh, I get like that.
Yes.
It's like genetic or something.
If he wasn't a Steiner, he would have grown up like the biggest Steiner fan in all of the suburbs of Detroit. It's 100% what he is. Yeah.
Like he needs a fanny pack. Give him a fanny pack.
Oh, yeah.
And I'd be like, that's him.
That would be a good character addition. Lean into it.
Yes.
But that's kind of what they were doing when they made him kind of funny. They leaned into his Steinerness. And But as a bad guy, it's just... Okay. You're very intimidating physically. You talk not so good. But we did get to see everyone's hero, the Mad Dragon, Ilya Dragunov, in the segment. Because, Braun spears Sammy and then goes to leave. And then they did the thing where he ran back. And I love every time Braun does the thing where he runs around the ring. They do it like an overhead shot, and it's super funny watching Braun bust ass around the ring.
That's why he wears those cross trainers.
Yes. That's probably a tell if he's wearing his cross trainers. Watch out, he's going to try to do his fucking run around the ring thing. Which his run around the ring thing also completely fucks up a thing that happens in the next segment. Because, we'll talk about it in a second. But the overhead shot, very funny. But they're clearly continuing the Sammy thing. And they're going to let Braun win probably now, which is going to aggravate me. But I do I do. He has a bright future. It's, again, the wrestling discourse, but you probably won't believe this, but there's a lot of truth to it. A big argument between AEW and WWE people when they do their arguing online is the WWE people say that Braun is a better... young guy to build around than Will Ospreay is.
Yeah. Oh.
And I'm like, that's fucking insane. Braun is great. It is stuff that he's great at. But come on.
But and they could do fun stuff with him. I know you filled me in. I saw a little bit of when Sami Zayn was with the bloodline stuff. Make Sami Zayn and Braun Breaker an odd couple and let Braun get
great.
Yes,
he's a better babyface too, Braun.
Do something
because the dumb guy thing works. Jey Uso.
Yeah,
it works better if he's likable, and Braun can be likable. I've seen it. He was in NXT. Wolf Dogs was goddamn great.
And I did see I did see the ring stuff where I was like, okay, I get why he's here.
He's a super athlete.
Fix the name and the character.
And yeah. I think they think they needed to start over with how they did him in NXT because he started as this kind of thing and then he morphed into, once people got to know him or whatever, into the funny. I think he's talented enough at the funny stuff that they could have done that right away and he would have been super over.
Yeah.
But he's over right now because the crowd loves whatever they're spoon-fed. I did think Sammy kind of saved the promo battle part of this, though, because he was like, are you just going to stare at me? Are we talking? What's going on here? And stuck the microphone in his chest. Sammy's great.
Yeah. That's why they could be a good odd couple.
Yeah. Oh, they'd be wonderful
put them together.
Plus, you're going to need something to do with Sammy after this Intercontinental title thing is done. So next we got Carlito and the Judgment Day, because he's not technically part of the Judgment Day, even though he's my favorite part of the Judgment Day. And I also think he shouldn't wrestle because he's kind of done. He's old. He was always okay.
Yeah.
Only. And now he's old.
Yeah.
So he can't really wrestle. But he's awesome. He's hilarious. And his timing's great. And he can talk his ass off.
And looks the same as he did.
And he's got a great look. He looks like, what's his name? Stevie Van Zandt from, if he were Cuban. Or he's Puerto Rican. I bet he's Puerto Rican. They beat the Awesome Truth and Braun Strowman somehow. I don't even know. I didn't take it out. I don't care. But the thing, to my two notes there, I talked about this before on this podcast, but I don't think I've talked with you about this. Braun Strowman, the monster among monsters.
The guy who I thought his name was Braun Strongman.
It basically is, because guess who named him?
Give me three guesses, and I bet I could figure it out.
It was kind of when he came into the company. It was kind of cool. But I don't. Braun's guy is an interesting dude, but when he came into the company, it was kind of cool because it happened right at the same time that the Mountain on Game of Thrones was happening, and he's like that same dude, basically. That's what his background is, too, is like the strongman, the world's strongest man contests and stuff. That's what he does. And he's good at the in-ring monster stuff. If you want a monster, like, we've both talked about this, not our favorite kind of wrestler, but, like, he's good at it. He's not like Abyss. Abyss, like, he was an old TNA guy. He was incredible. Like, you would have liked him.
Okay.
Even though he's a monster, because he was like a very versatile monster who also did a bunch of Mick Foley, I'll kill myself for your entertainment kind of things. But for like a modern monster guy, Braun is very good at that kind of stuff. But his hairline is goddamn ridiculous, and he understood at one point that it was going, and he shaved his head. And then as a balding man, when you cross that line, nobody ever goes back unless you get the plugs or the modern good-looking one, the transplants.
The Brian Urlacher treatment?
Yeah, where you can have nice hair again. You just have to do the thing. But, like, Braun just decided, okay, now I'm going to grow it back, and it's like it looks like a goddamn samurai or something, because his hairline is in the middle of the top of his head, and it's every time I see him on screen, I'm like, what are you doing, man? You're not playing a crazy person character. What? No one in regular people society would do that with their head. Like, it looks insane. And Damian Priest is getting there too. Like, you got to do something with that.
Plus, if you're a big, tough wrestler, like, you're the most apt at having the shaved head and pulling it off. Like, you can
he
pull
looks
it off.
good with the shaved head.
I don't
know why more wrestlers don't do. They all do the shaved head. Like, everybody that balds ends up doing the shaved head. I don't like nowadays. It's not. I mean, I would do it, but it's expensive. But, like, I don't know why they don't get the thing done.
Yeah.
Like, Bradley Cooper hasn't had fucking hair for 15 years. Right. Ben Affleck's been bald since I was 16 years old or something.
Yeah.
It looks good.
It looks
You can
great.
get that done. And I don't think it's a problem with, like, wrestling or sports, because athletes do it too. Like, football players do it.
Yeah.
Like, current football players do it. I don't know why wrestlers don't do it, because, like, your look is a big part of what you're doing in that business. And Braun's, it's out of control. Somebody needs to have an intervention on his hairline.
I didn't pay much attention, but now I'm going to.
It's like, if you look at a still of him now, it's upsetting. Like, it's, I mean, I am more personally affected as a guy that shaved his head because of baldiness.
Yeah.
But the listeners that are in my boat understand that, like, yeah, no, you don't then grow it back, because that just brings more attention to the fact that your hair looks insane.
And it's probably even gotten worse since the last time we saw it.
Exactly. Your hairline doesn't come back after you shave. It doesn't get better, unless you do something.
There's only one direction it's going to go.
You got to do the thing, or it's going to just get worse, or stop. It could stop and just stay where it was, but probably not. Probably going to get worse. The other ridiculous thing is Braun also does the run around the ring, choo-choo train, going to smash the thing. And he's done it for years. But now we just saw Braun Breaker do it 25 miles an hour. So when Braun Strowman, whose name is too close to Braun Breaker's to begin with, does the choo-choo train thing right after Braun Breaker did the choo-choo train thing, and it's like a fourth as fast, it's not very intimidating.
That's true.
Carlito basically, like, ran away enough. I still have been...
That should be what the move is.
I have called
just
for
outrun him a little
for like
bit.
A year is... I want to see somebody, like, a little bit smaller than him do that, like, them realize, and then just run around the ring until he gasses, because he's 500 pounds. He's going to, like, run out of gas. And Carlito almost did that here. Like, he didn't.
Yeah.
But it was funny to watch him. Like, they just gave us, like, a very overhead, it was like a sports shot of, look how fast this guy is moving now. 5 minutes later, look how not fast this other guy is doing the exact same thing. He needs to get rid of that from his arsenal, especially if he's, like, on a show at all with Braun Breaker.
Yeah.
But especially not in the segment after Braun just did the thing. At this point, we get the Jack Tripper bit with Liv, where she's like, let me stretch your leg.
Back to that match, I did want to call out, because I've only watched 3 weeks, and now 2 of those weeks, The Miz in his tag matches, the jump tag he does is so ridiculous. And does he do that every time?
Yeah.
He does? Okay.
Yeah, that's his hot tag thing.
I was like,
I'm a babyface hot tag.
Oh, it's so bad.
The Miz is off.
So bad. And I was like, twice.
Again, so good at, like, so many things. He could be Carson Daly if he wanted to and make $1 billion doing that. Yet he persists wrestling in the ring.
He was not bad the week I watched where he was at the announce table. Just like, let him do that.
Yeah, he can do everything except wrestle. Like, I make fun of Cena, but Miz really is like the clearest example of. It's insane that this person has been doing this for as long as he has consistently. He never gets hurt either. That's like one of the benefits of the Miz is like he's always there. He's a workhorse.
Yeah.
It's like he's been wrestling consistently for 20 years and has not improved one iota like in that entire time. He's just everything looks soft and looks like he's cooperating with the person, not fighting with them, and that's the other thing. Nobody ever gets hurt in matches with Miz, which is another good thing.
Yeah.
But part of the reason is because he doesn't do anything with any impact, so it just looks like.
But yeah, I just had to bring that up because I noticed it 2 of the weeks I've watched, and I was like, does he do this every time?
Yeah, 20 years. We get 20 years of it.
Okay, cool.
When he's a good guy, it's a good guy thing. He's got a whole other set of stupid shit that you'll get annoyed with. When he's a bad guy.
Okay.
He does in every match. Then we got the Jack Tripper, Liv doing we got to stretch out for our match, and a stretch that you would never do in the position that they're doing. It would look very sexual, but it's not. You can do that leg stretch, but you wouldn't do it in that position.
In that position, like on a leather chair or something?
Yeah, you do it you would lay flat on the floor, and somebody would. Yeah, but to make it look sexual, and of course the whole Judgment Day then walks in and catches them because it's Three's Company.
Yeah,
and Liv is delighted by this, and Dom's like, "Oh man, every time, what the one?"
And then Carlito, I like that. Carlito's had top in there.
Oh yeah.
That's what he's good for.
He's the best. He at this point though, Dom does say, "Just tell me we're gonna win at least." If anything, because it's my dad, we're gonna win. And she's like, "Yeah, we're gonna win." And that led into the way the show closed. So there was more spooky stuff here. This is where we got the Bo Dallas sitting in the office part. We talked about it already, but this is where it happened.
Because they gave the VHS and then it took a while for the guys in the van or whatever they say.
Yeah, Punk called him by name. That felt like a little Matthew Jackson, being the I want to be your best buddy boss guy. Yeah. When Punk's like, I told Jimmy and Spezzo or whatever the fuck stupid nickname it was in the truck to put this on. So roll it, guys. I was like, Punk, relax a little bit with that. We got, but yeah, this is where we get the Bo Dallas sitting in the office part. And I dug that. Ilya Dragunov got a win over Bron Breakker.
And I will say, as much as Bron Breakker pains me with most parts of his existence, this was one of my favorite matches. Yeah. It was one of the better matches of the night. I thought, now I see it. Now I get why he's involved in this. And I also, Ilya Dragunov's hair mid-match made me laugh out, literally laugh out loud. It was so great.
In the best way.
It was
I love
really
him.
funny.
I love everything about his nonsense. Yeah, I think just match wise, it was between this and the women's 6-man for best match. I think this probably was the best match. Yeah, well,
this is why, like I said, I was kind of on the first half of Raw, and then I was like, oh no, I actually am enjoying this now.
I know Ilya didn't win. It was like a DQ or something. I forget what the way it ended, but I was just expecting Bron to get a win, and they still seem to be booking Ilya strong because he's these two have undeniable chemistry. They've had another match that was one of my favorite. Actually, if you listen, check out my Blue Thunder Pod top 10 midway through the year matches of this year. Their earlier match was on that list.
Okay.
Or maybe in top 20 I did, but it was on that my list of favorite matches. And this was a shorter match, and it wasn't as incredible, but these two, they're coming into the company kind of at the same time, and they just have undeniable chemistry. Ilya's awesome. He's going to be awesome no matter who he's wrestling. He could carry a shittier wrestler to a good match, but Bron's good in the ring. And these two do have legit, in-ring chemistry is a thing. There can be two great wrestlers that wrestle a match, and you're just why isn't this clicking? And it's just chemistry. Yeah. And these guys have it.
No, big props to Bron Breakker, because this is where I was I'm actually enjoying this Raw now.
Have you seen Ilya before this do his entrance with his crazy Russian conductor.
I don't think so.
Because that's half the reason I love the guy is because I love his unhinged like conductor thing. I did have a note though. I mean, he was doing his conductor thing, and then he came down to the ring and was still doing the like thing with his fingers in the air, and they went to commercial, and then they came because I hate when they do entrance commercial or whatever.
Yep.
Did the commercial. Then went to like another backstage. They did like a little promo or something, or talking to somebody. I forget who it was, whatever. But like the whole time Ilya's in the ring waiting.
Well,
was he doing his conductor thing though?
Well, that was my note about when Damage Control. It was like Damage Control came out, and I was like, versus who? Because I was going to write it down, and then I was like, who knows? Because now Final Testament is doing something. Yes. I was like, what's happening right now?
I hate it.
But yeah, that's.
I don't know why they don't. I don't. It's like a Vince. It's one of those like the residual Vince things that like they haven't realized yet that it's stupid.
It's
like,
so strange.
I think eventually because they like fixed all their camera stuff. That all looks better. The way they shoot the matches is a million times better. The way the arena looks on TV is a million times better. But they still do this stupid ass entrance. Cut to other bullshit in a commercial.
Did I black out? Like what happened? What did I miss?
Sometimes I forget. Like they'll do an entrance. And then they do so much other bullshit that I'll forget that there's people in the ring. Like,
there.
I can't imagine what it's like. I mean, I've been to fairly modern Raws, like me and Nick went to one, like I don't know, probably 4 years ago, something like that. I don't think I remember like that. I think you would notice though, like. Kevin Owens comes out of the ring and has to stand there for 15 minutes.
Yeah.
You'd notice, I think. But, like, I don't know. It's got to be weird for the live people.
Do they do the thing like sporting events where when there's a commercial break, they, like, have the Dunkin' Donuts race to see who wins a free donut? Maybe they're doing that.
That would be a good idea, but then you would be acknowledging that there's a reason you got to do the Dunkin' Donuts race. Because in real sports, there are real reasons why you have to have lulls in the action. You're deciding to do this to yourself.
It was very, very noticeable with that Damage. I was like, what is happening right now?
It happens with them a lot, too, because like a few weeks ago they did that. And then like I know we noticed because I talked about it with Dave. The Io Sky was like sitting on the turnbuckle in an interesting way.
Yeah.
And it was because she had been waiting for 10 minutes after but it looked cool the way she was doing it, but like it was for that reason.
Yeah.
And it's so stupid. And it seems like an easy fix. Just do the bullshit first and then do the match. It's the same amount of time.
Do
the bullshit,
do the
commercial.
Final Testament, yes. Yes, exactly.
Why the fuck? Why? Do they think that like because they do an entrance, they think that's keeping people on? That's not even how people watch TV anymore. Like anyone. No one watches live shit at all. And then, like, it's less as a sport. But that wouldn't work even if it was 15 years ago before DVR was, like, ubiquitous. That's not going to grab people, like watching Damage Control come to the ring, because you forget even. Like I said, like, just do it in the right order. I don't know. I've been bitching about it for 6 months on the show, so I'm sure people are tired of hearing me. But it's nice to have validation and somebody else.
Literally, my note was like Damage Control versus, and I put like ... question mark.
Why are you doing this?
Like, what's going on?
I thought I was the only person that it bothered because I've been bitching about it nonstop since this podcast has been a thing. But did you take a note? I forgot how the match ended. I just were happy that Ilya didn't get jobbed out.
I didn't. I was laughing about his hair.
But it was good. It was a good match.
Yeah.
Only 10 minutes. Oh, DQ. It was DQ. I did take a note.
I took a note that it was one of the better matches of the night, and I enjoyed it. So, which was surprising to me, given.
And back to back, it was the two good. I told you, Bronska.
I know you did.
It's hard to get. Sometimes I understand how it's hard to get past the other bullshit.
Well, and I think it's frustrating because I feel like there are ways they could make him work in a very funny,
There's 1,000 ways
way,
to make him work,
and they're just not doing.
Like you've said 3, like off the cuff. In an afternoon here, so yeah, I think their writing team could probably come up with a way to make him work better. But he's working, whatever. People are happy in the building; they cheer for him, even though he's a heel. So you're supposed to boo the fucking heels, but whatever. I guess that doesn't matter. But the two good matches on the show, or the two best matches I thought on the show, back to back, because this was when the Damage Guitar against Caden Carter, Katana Chance, who I feel so bad for, because their entire character for the, I don't know, year and a half they've been on the roster is we like to party and we lose all our matches. And Lyra Valkyria, who is incredible. Yeah. I fucking love her. She just came up. She was like, they do a batch of NXT call-ups every year at their draft, which is it's bullshit. There's no draft. Yeah. But she was one of the call-ups, and she's been like a phenom. She's awesome. They haven't given her any kind of character stuff yet beyond you're Irish. So like they let her talk in Gaelic a little bit. So I guess that is like the Gaelic thing is almost a character thing. But like she's so incredible in the ring that she's been like undeniable. They're letting her win matches that they normally would never let somebody that just came up win. And she was, for me, the highlight of this match was her. Like Damage Control. I think we talked about, because when we were talking about Zelina, I said a similar person is Dakota Kai. She's like can talk people into the arena. She's a great talker. She's not that great a wrestler. The other two, though, Io Sky and Kairi Sane, are phenomenal wrestlers. Lyra Valkyria is phenomenal, and Katana Chance and Caden Carter are good. Yeah, this was a really good match. I liked it. Did you notice, like, did Lyra stand out to you like she does to me? Or I thought she was really good. I must have liked her because I looked her up and was reading about her and stuff. So she didn't make an impression. I was just interested because one of the notes I had, and it was after, it was like in my notes from this match, and it was just something I had noticed the whole night, which I was like, maybe this is just a WWE thing, or maybe it was just that night's show. But even with like the better matches, which I did think were good matches, there were like a lot of weird pauses and telegraphs of things that I was like, I didn't love. That's part of the style. Yeah. That's when I talk about the WWE style, that's part. Okay. That's just built in. Just that. Okay. It's a performance center thing. They take like even wrestlers that I've loved elsewhere, and they bring them in, they send them to the performance center. They want them to wrestle a very specific way. Okay. It's paced a certain way. So yeah, that's just a performance center thing. It's just part of the style. I was like, I noticed it and must have noticed it again during that match because I was like, this is like a thing that's happening. Yeah. And they're good. They were good. It was a good match, but it was obvious stuff. That's why I wrote it down, because it's like, this is weird that I'm like noticing this. It's why it's like, and people often take it in a certain way that I don't necessarily mean it. But like when I talk about AEW and WWE, particularly in ring, I'm like, the worst stuff in AEW, I think, is always going to, for me, be better than the best stuff on WWE. And it's not the performers' faults at all. It's because of the way that they have decided they want them to wrestle. Right. I just can't get as invested in the in-ring when there are those things. There's like weird choreographed. Yeah. Like, and I still enjoyed it and still would like qualify it like as a really good match. It was an enjoyable match. Yeah, for sure. But I was like, that's but you notice, interesting. And it takes you out of it a little bit. And there are not many things in AEW or New Japan or whatever that like intentionally are done that take you out of a match. Yeah. Somebody will screw up or something and then it'll take you out of it because that looked weird or whatever. But there's nowhere else in wrestling that like there's a thing that is decided we're doing this for a reason that takes you out of the moment. And you're too much like waiting for the person to get in the position or the this or the that or get closer to the ropes or something. And I was like, oh, this is a little weird. And when it happens elsewhere, like it's usually a thing that like a wrestler will notice and then they'll try to fix. Yeah. Like we've talked about on the podcast, Swerve Strickland does the swerve stomp. And for a while, it was difficult. It took you out of it a little bit because in order for him to do that, his opponent would have to be very creative in the way that they got into position, or else it looked like, oh, somebody's trying to scoot their butt over to get in position. Yeah. So then they noticed it too, and he changed it. Now he's been doing the swerve stomp just from different places, and he doesn't do it that way anymore. But in WWE, it would just be like, well, that's just what we do. Yeah. Miz does his jumpy tag thing. That's what we do. Yeah. It's part of it's built in. Yeah, because they want. It's like McDonald's. They wanted every order to taste the same, whether you're in Italy or New York or Montana. That's what it was with this one. It was like something where like there was a weird too long of a pause waiting for someone to do a move on them, where it was like, you would have moved out of the way of that. That's not how this would actually have worked. Which I get it, but it rarely looks like a fight. Yeah. But it was, again, not to shit on it, because they're all very good performers, and it was a fun match. I do still love Raw. So yeah. Yeah, you won't hear him. Well, but you won't hear me like talking shit about any of the Carlito stuff, like or Yeet. You know that is flawless.
No, I just and I don't even like blame because obviously you don't want people getting hurt and stuff. But it was just something that was noticeable to me, and I was like, "Is this just something how it is?" And maybe it was always this way back when I watched 20 years ago, and I just wasn't focusing on that.
Since the advent of the Performance Center, like the Attitude Era, there was no Performance Center.
Okay,
it was basically people came in like Stone Cold came in from WCW, and like. Those were the things he knew.
Yeah.
The Brett and Owen Hart were in Stampede, like indie guys. That's what they were. That's what they were in WWE too. WWF. It was when they brought the Performance Center in and homogenized everything. That's when everything started looking kind of the same.
Yeah, everything's like very cultivated in the same exact vein. Yeah.
I wish they would just scrap the Performance Center because the in-ring is the only thing that I at this point don't really like about WWE. That and the thing we talked about, the weird commercial, the way that they lay the show out. I think they'll fix that though, because they have fixed a lot of other adjacent stuff to that, and that's the only one that still is like, what the fuck is this? Why are you doing that? But I do wish they would just scrap the Performance Center because I don't love that. I also my other note was I liked the way this ended was like a run-in by a new stable, and. In the stable was one of the women that I said, like specifically by name, Zoe Stark, was like, give her some trait, something to do beyond to be wrestler person. And now she's in a stable. So like maybe they're going to do a thing with her.
I have another note where I thought it was funny because I was thinking like with the amount of post-match run-ins, you know, if there was logic involved in WWE, you would be like, okay, if I win this match, immediately I'm going to be on my guard. It's going to be up because somebody's running in to get me.
Well, what I said too is like when they brought in, I like the GMs on Raw and SmackDown. I think they are good in their like characters and stuff. But why would your first rule of business not be like, okay, we need to address this enormous like problem with people just coming into the ring at the end of all of our fucking matches and ruining every match.
Everyone's always shocked, and it's like, well, this happens every week.
This needs to be number one on the agenda list. Not who's going to be in the championship match. We need to address the keeping people from running down and interfering in the matches because like. Happens every match.
It does. I was like, this guy kind of funny.
I didn't mind this one because I liked that Shayna Baszler, Zoe Stark, and now Sonya Deville. Sonya Deville has not been on TV for a long time. She's another very talented wrestler. She's been in the company for a long time too, but she's had a real bad. Had a lot of bad luck with injuries. She's been out with like pretty serious injuries a few times, but she's really good and she can talk too.
Yeah.
Which. After they did their run in, Zoe and Shayna, who I love, got to talk a little bit. Shayna almost never talks, and she did okay.
Yeah.
Like she's been like silent assassin kind of person because she was a real MMA, like a legit fighter.
Yeah.
And I love her because she looks real.
They do. They all look like real fighting athletes.
Yep. And now they got a thing. So like, cool. I'm happy that they're doing it.
You know what? I was like, I like that they dressed like how they would probably dress in real life.
Yep. And like Shayna more and more looks like she did in NXT, which is like that. Like you would if you were like a
tough chick.
Yeah. She was an MMA fighter. That's how she looks like an MMA fighter. That's how they dress when they're not fighting. Yeah. And that's what she looks like.
It was like noticeable to me. I was like, oh, it's cool that they're dressed like normal.
So I'm going to like that group if they give them stuff to do. And then the main event of the evening, we got Dirty Dom and his abuser against the LWO, Rey Mysterio and Zelina Vega, your girl. Match was pretty good. Dom's not, he's Dom, so like he has his limitations in the ring. He's not his dad as far as between the ropes. But he was okay, and Zelina continues to improve, I think, too, in the ring.
I was trying to remember because at some point in the show, I don't remember how early it was. I think it was like midway through the show or something, and they were talking to Rey and Zelina, and I was thinking, did I ever hear Rey Mysterio talk back 20 years ago?
WCW a bunch.
Okay.
He's not a very good talker.
Okay. I was like, I don't even know if I were like
when they took his mask off. I don't even like to think about that because it feels like a sexual abuse or something. But when back then when he was in what was the name of that stable, the Dirty Somethings. he would talk.
Oh, I kind of do remember because I remember the mask.
He's a very boyish voice.
He had a very boyish look.
His son is a better talker than his son is as good or is as better. How am I trying to say this? What Ray is in the ring, Dom is on the mic. And swaps, essentially.
Got it.
Dom really he's okay. He's not gonna hurt anybody. He's not. It's not dangerous putting him in there, and they're like it is with some people. But he's never gonna be Ray.
No, and I'm super impressed with how good Ray still is. And if you had asked me
he's insane.
If you had said 20 years ago, in 20 years Rey Mysterio is gonna be the main event match at Raw, I would be like, he's gonna be old and broken.
If you 20 years ago, if you said finish this sentence in 20 years, Rey Mysterio will be, I would have said paralyzed, not still wrestling at the same level that he currently is wrestling.
So I've been very impressed with what I've seen of him.
But the match is pretty good, and the way that it worked out, Liv helped, and Dom pinned his daddy for the first time. So big deal, very emotional.
Yeah, you told me that because I didn't know that there was he never had.
The history is important to what came next, because Dom, for the first time in this euphoric state of overwhelming emotion, they hug Liv and Dom and they kind of fall to the mat.
Yeah.
And for the first time in this entire story, it looks like Dom is starting to reciprocate, he might kiss her or something.
But then
what is it? This is our reality, I think is the way that her song starts. Rhea Ripley and her badass
Which is
self.
funny because I have no idea who she is, but you had filled me in enough that as soon as music, I was like, oh, I know what's happening. I know who this is and what's going on here.
She and Liv looked down the pipe of the ramp oh, fuck. That's actually Rhea, right after the show, made Liv's reaction face her new Instagram profile picture. Yeah, so Rhea's back. She comes down looking like Rhea. She's a badass.
Yeah.
The place goes fucking bananas because she's the most over woman on the roster. Maybe the most over person up there with them. And she just Liv immediately just hits the bricks. I'm getting the fuck out of here. Her whole thing has been the Liv Morgan revenge tour. So they are eventually going to have their big match.
Yeah.
And there's a lot behind it now, a lot of emotional stakes behind it because of all the stuff, the work they've been doing. Rhea just mean mugs Dom, and he just looks like a puppy that got caught shitting on the carpet or something. Tries to start explaining himself and is I can't. And I feel bad for him because it was the only moment of actual weakness,
all out of his sails.
It was and the only time that he was reciprocating in any of the shit that Liv was doing at him was because he was stuck in the emotionality of just having beaten his dad for the first time in his life. So anybody would get fucked up by that. And that's when I thought that was a nice piece of writing.
Yeah.
That's when they, Rhea catches him, and it looks like he's actually about to kiss Liv. But really, it's just the, endorphins in his brain going nuts. But Rhea didn't have to say anything. She just stares him down. She could have grabbed him by the ear.
I think she was saying, mommy's back or something. Yeah. I don't know.
It was muttering in through
very
teeth.
Angry.
Yeah. But it was great, and that's how the show ended. And Rhea is also awesome in the ring too. She's one of those people that somehow when she's wrestling, you would think that she's 6'1" or something, and she's 5'7".
Oh, okay.
But she feels giant, and that's a a thing.
Yeah.
That you can have part of. I don't know if you call it charisma or what, but it is a thing that some people have that just feel bigger than they are. And she's got that, I think, in spades. She just looks like a big monster.
Well, I'm excited.
I mean, she's jacked, but she's
Yeah, I'm excited that I will presumably be able to see her wrestle very soon.
Yeah. So it's cool. Way earlier than I expected because the injury that she had was separated shoulder. And that's usually a long ass timeline. I was thinking the Rumble, which is in January or something, was when they initially said what her injury was. So maybe the injury just was not as bad as they thought, or she didn't need to get surgery, which usually you do for the separated shoulder, because it looks like she's ring ready. And I don't think they'd be bringing her back unless they were going to pull trigger on the live thing. Like, that's going to happen soon. I think it's got to now because there's not too much more story you can do.
You can't let that go any longer now. There's got to be a conflict.
It has to happen. Yeah, it's got to happen. It has never to be. So they might, but right now, giving them grace. I love the way the show ended. I thought this was a fun.
Just fix Braun Breaker, and then we're all good.
Yeah, and that's an easy fix. You gave them 3 options today, this afternoon. So that was Raw. That was our week in WWE. You can find us on the socials. Instagram, Blue Thunder Pod, TikTok, Blue Thunder Pod, YouTube, The Blue Thunder Pod, and all of the above. I'm sorry, X, Twitter, Blue Thunder Pod, all of the above at bluethunderpod.com. If you have not already, go check out our AEW podcast, which will drop at the same time as this one. As always, thanks for joining us, everybody. Hope to see you again next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.